So now, Thucydides. So now, gentlemen, we are still continuing our Western canon on history, right? Mm-hmm. We have done Herodotus. We are now officially on Thucydides. And boy, does he give you a good... So, book one, the way Thucydides organizes it, right? It's then books, but then chapters.
Well, right? From the chapters are, from what I've read here, the chapters are apparently arbitrarily placed. The chapters were put in by the translator.
By the translators.
So, like, for chunks.
So
the books are Thucydides' chapter.
So we decided just chapter one for now, correct? Or
book one.
Or book one. Yeah. I already read it beforehand, so that's fine. Now, what did you guys think of his intro? So let's go back. So Herodotus. So now we're starting to get a Western canon sort of thing, where at least on a historical work, the authors will explain to you the purpose of their work, right?
Well, I remember roughly the intro.
Yes.
It's kind of just like a mission statement on why he's doing it.
But Paul, this is incredibly important. Does he talk about himself in the first or third person?
Third.
Third person.
It's just for the most part, it is he wrote in his intro a mission statement on why he's doing it, because he sees it's escalating a lot. He's like, this is gonna be big. This is gonna be very important. I better take note of it.
He considers it it might be like the greatest war to come.
And most importantly, he actually explains his method on how he's writing the history. Yeah. He says, I'm taking this from speech, but they're not one to one. They're just like what they basically said in that speech. Mm-hmm. And it's not just like I'm getting it from one person. I'm getting from a few more than one source.
Yeah, multiple sources. He won't include any supernatural sources as well. I think he goes into that. What do you guys think about how he details the events? I personally, when I first read it, especially now after reading Herodotus, I found Thucydides to be much more analytical and much it's almost like he intentionally read Herodotus and decided he was going to take it up a notch and learn from Herodotus's mistakes.
I think here's the thing, because if we compare him to Herodotus right now, it's like Thucydides is like he made the point clear on why he's doing this. It is purely for the history, while Herodotus, there's history, but
it's to honor these people.
It's to honor the people, but also to explore the cultures.
Yeah.
Their viewpoints, what they want to accomplish is different. Mm-hmm. And in this case, Thucydides is honing in on the Peloponnesian War specifically. Anything that's not related to it doesn't matter to him.
Yeah, it does not matter to him. Like you said, he's strictly looking at the histories. He's much more, much more of a cynical type of writer, if you guys know what I mean. Because Thucydides was also himself a general in this war, and definitely we can assume that he's part of a very elite educated class, right? You don't become a general without that. But he was also exiled from Athens. So we're also getting, and when I first read it, it's a really critical viewpoint on Athens. Thucydides is incredibly critical of Athenian expansion in the area, which is incredible coming from a former Athenian general. I understand that he was exiled, but for him to suddenly, you're definitely getting the sense that this is an analytical thinker. Because you can imagine that somebody who's not as intelligent or as critical thinking would have been with Athens, and then even after they're done and retired, just say Athens was the best, they were completely in the right, just like a lot of the people that Herodotus interviewed. Mm-hmm. But instead, he's critical. And I think that really, really helps. We're definitely getting an analytical thinker. We're definitely getting a more cynical thinker. This guy doesn't believe in some greater good and evil that happens to people.
By the way, this is completely unrelated, but I did find it funny. People might find this boring because there's no romance in the book, which I did find funny. He did talk about that.
Yeah, it makes sense. He's just trying to tell the story of the war. He doesn't want to spruce it up. He, again, like Herodotus...
Although he does go into speeches a lot. He records them speeches.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But I do find, so far in this first book, I do find it pretty interesting. Because I think he's taking two somewhat contrary approaches, but still mixing them together pretty well. The first one is he's viewing it as a state having its interests.
Yes.
But also how individuals can influence the way the state can operate based on their interests. So I find it interesting how you have the two important speakers in this book so far is Pericles and what's the Spartan general name, like Artabises or something?
Artabises.
Like so far, like we see how like these two people like have like a direct impact on like on what their respective societies are doing.
Yes.
Which I find interesting is like for the most part, like Thucydides does say like Spartan, well, the Lacedaemonians want this, so they do therefore do that.
Yeah.
That's
It's
mostly
very cause and effect.
yeah. So like they're using like they're not he's not doing much of like what we would call great man theory or something like that.
No.
They would, I don't know how they would how like the interest of the states is called like
International relations.
yeah, it might be like it might take more of an international relations approach.
Yeah.
So in this case, they're all just like 30 seconds away from each other.
And just the way he talks, I mean, it's this language of the strong are strong and the weak just have to bear with it because they're weak. And that's the way things are, and that's the way things will always be.
Yes, you're completely right. Thucydides never talks about morality, like and is the most he would say is that like they violated the gods' wishes, you know. But like they never say, oh, this state is terrible, this state is blah blah blah. He talks about the conditions of the state and what other states do in relation to that condition.
But I noticed this, particularly critical of Athens. Very critical of Athens. Almost, and tell me guys if I'm wrong, but when I read it, I got this, that he's almost portraying like Athens as the main villain in this history that he's writing, that they're the aggressors, and the Spartans and everybody else just has to like, everything is in reaction to what Athens is doing, and Athens' expansion. What do you guys think about that?
It's interesting. He was a general in Athens, right?
Exactly.
So he has a lot of experience in Athens. Maybe looking back and seeing what they've done, like in hindsight, he realized, maybe what we were doing, we weren't the good guys in this story. So again, we'll see it a little bit more. But yeah, and again, like Spartans, a lot of that he got from word of mouth, I would assume. So he would have to piece them together and see what have they done, like how are they judged.
Well, I could kind of be not exactly agree with you. And like, I don't think Thucydides particularly cares about what's right and what's wrong. He's more saying, are they capable of doing this?
Okay.
And like, Thucydides did live through the war, right?
Yes.
So he knows that they lose. So it's like kind of just like building up the fact that like Athens were doing actions that they just couldn't back up in the long term.
Yeah. But here's what I think might be a plausible way, like why he's writing Athens in the way he's writing. Once he's exiled, I think in his mind he's like, oh, I no longer have a reason to like spread the propaganda or like portray my country in a good way because now my country's like abandoned me. So I think he's like a combination of bitter, but also like because he's been exiled, he's now free to say what's really on his mind. Which is why he doesn't portray Athens, like you said, Paul, in like a really moral way, that they're the heroes of the story. Which I think might have happened if he was still employed by Athens, right? Because he would still have something to lose, right? He could still lose his job. But once he's exiled and he's lost his reputation and his job, now he's free to like write about what he truly thinks about the conflict.
Perhaps. I'll have to think about that.
Yeah. But was the Melian dialogue in book 1? No, there had nothing to do with the island of Melos, right?
No, I don't think Melos was mentioned at all.
No.
This was mostly about Potidea, if anything.
Yeah. Judea.
I guess we may as well talk about what actually happened in book 1. Like,
So basically,
it starts at the end of the Trojan War.
yeah, briefly. And then he briefly also touches on the Persian War.
Yeah.
Well, I think he does rightly see how like the Peloponnesian War is like kind of a result of the vacuum left by Xerxes.
Yeah.
Like I think like that's the best way to view it. Like now that they saw that Xerxes wasn't like really a threat anymore, like he was just gonna chill in Persia for all they know. They kind of just now see that as a possibility to like, okay, now we can deal with their own stuff now.
Yeah. Now there's like the vacuum, like you said, left in that region. And I believe he starts with Corinth and the rivalry between Corinth and Athens, especially in regards to naval expansion.
You're right. Like they talk about how Athens is like the best naval power.
Yeah.
Then we have, but then Thucydides mentions there are 3 like pretty decent naval powers in the Peloponnese by this point: Athens, Corinth and Potidea.
Yeah.
And we do know like the Lacedaemonians and the Athenians don't necessarily have like a great relationship with each other.
No, they are pure rivals. In all sense of the word.
Again, for the most part, if we exclude that one time they helped each other in the Peloponnesian, in the Xerxes invasion, they don't really like each other. So I kind of just see like this the entire book is kind of just like it's obviously it's a build up to the Peloponnesian War, but like we see how like that build up starts like was it chapter 1 that they talk about like the island of Potidea like about to be invaded by Corinth?
Yes. So
there's the intro, and then there was the dispute over Epidamnus, I believe. Where's that going? Because I know there was the intro, and then it talked about Corcyra.
yeah, the Corinthian colony.
Yeah.
And then like Corcyra was also got their independence, right? They didn't want to be under Corinthian rule anymore, and so yeah, they were originally a Corinthian colony, but then they founded another colony called Epidamnus. Then it was fallen on hard times, and Epidamnus appealed back to Corcyra for assistance, but Corcyra decided to deny them help, and then they decided to appeal to Corinth. So Corinth colonized Corcyra, and Corcyra colonized Epidamnus. Epidamnus went to Corcyra and was like, "Can you help us out on our state?" They're like, "No." So they go to Corinth, and that creates a bit of a rivalry now, because now Corcyra feels like they went back, they went behind their backs to get Corinth. So now Corcyra and Corinth have a brewing conflict that you could almost like compare to like the 13 colonies in Britain or any other like colony that's having sort of a spat with their home nation. So then Corcyra and Corinth then go to Athens, right? Make their cases, their individual cases for the conflict in order to seek an alliance with the Athenians, right? So the Corcyraans point out that the Athenians, by helping Corcyra, they would win both gratitude and admiration.
And the naval, it was Corcyra the third naval power, right?
Yes.
I wasn't put to do.
And Corcyra would be useful to Athens in wartime, especially in a war between the Athenians and the people of the Peloponnese, which is now seeming more and more inevitable as we're getting further away from the Persian wars. And like you said, Paul, Thucydides talks about the three naval powers: Corcyraeans, Corinth, and Athens. And the Corcyraeans make the argument that it would be in Athens' best interest to unite with Corcyra. The Corinthians then reply that Corcyra has presented false claims. Athens should remember how Corinth has rendered assistance in the past and live up to its obligations. So they hold the two assemblies, and the Athenians decided to back the Corcyraeans, which
results in a battle
battle.
where both sides claim they won.
Yeah. And then there's the affair of Potidea near Macedonia. Potidea was originally also a Corinthian colony, but then decided to pay tribute to Athens. So there's this pattern, and that's why you see like Corinth and Athens, and like Thucydides is also like winking like, did the Athenians really back the Corcyraeans because it was the more admirable thing to do? Or maybe they saw that Corinth was like a growing power, and in order to check on them, they had to back the Corcyraeans.
I wouldn't say they were a growing power. They were just one of the big powers at that point. Like how many, like the big powers by this point are the Lacedaemonians, which is just a catch-all term for Sparta, Corinth, and all the cities around them. And the Athenians, which is really the Athenians and all the cities that pay tribute to Athens.
Yeah.
So like we see how like those two powers are like, they have conflicting interests.
Yes, because they're so close in power. So then Potidea eventually gets under siege, right? And the Corinthians decide to convene a meeting with their other Spartan allies. And at Sparta, there's also a delegation of Athenians coming. And the Corinthians begin by just giving the Spartans a lot of crap for how they handled their foreign affairs, that they handled it in such a clumsy way. And they also say that their actions in Corcyra and Potidea, they're part of a bigger Athenian plan to gradually get more and more influence and power. And they also say that the Corinthians, the Spartans, have never really understood the nature of Athens. That's what the Corinthians say to the Spartans. It's like, you're blind, you're deaf, you're dumb, you don't see what the Athenians are doing. Basically the whole book is just like you said, setting up the events with like Athens slowly encroaching, and these rivalries we're seeing are playing out, especially obviously between Athens and Sparta, but also much like we're really seeing a lot of also Corinth and Athens, and like their proxy wars between each other.
I actually thought the same thing about proxy wars. But is it really a proxy war if like Athens just sends their men there? Like, is it like just like I guess it's kind of it's like we technically didn't break our treaties, but Corinthians are fighting Athenians.
Yes.
So like they're just like it's more like Athens like skirted around the laws and like
But what the Athenians were doing also, Paul, is they were backing the Corcyraeans and
Yeah.
strengthening them against the
Yeah,
Corinthians.
and I believe at the beginning they're trying to do it like in secret, like sending them like a few reinforcements. But then later on, it was known. Okay, we're just gonna send everyone and just win this thing.
And then as far as like yeah, you're kind of right. Like we're blind, but we're not that blind, you know. So then like they declare war, but like does war? It's like war actually happened yet.
And the way Thucydides recounts it, it's like before like a big declaration happens, there's always an assembly, and there's always speeches being made between both sides before a big decision is made, and then like the conflict steps up a notch.
We also forgot to mention that there is a treaty
Yes.
in this, and Athens is a violation of the treaty.
Yeah, they violate, which is why I keep thinking that Thucydides is being extra harsh on Athens because he's saying that they violated the treaty, they're being aggressive. Yeah.
That was the first chapter.
Yes.
The second chapter's relatively short actually.
Yes. Well, the second chapter mostly deals with what I said about
Yeah, the affair of Potidea.
yeah, Potidea and that whole like dynamic. I don't think I really talked about chapter 4, but that's also short as well.
And chapter 3 is...
Oh yeah, chapter 4, Thucydides talks about how Athens even got to that powerful position, like
Yeah.
starting 50 years between the Persian and Peloponnesian wars. So this is really cool. What Thucydides does is he sets up a conflict, and then he says, oh, but this is how Athens got to this point. This is how Corinth got to this point.
Yeah, it talks about...
Like he does like a Quentin Tarantino thing, where he like presents you the events, and then he presents you afterwards how they got there.
I guess you're correct. It's where like it talks about like okay, we're at a point where Athens has their empire. How do we get to the empire? And he talks about how like a bunch of island city-states. After what happened with Persia, they're much more inclined to like start having an alliance where like they pay tribute to Athens in order to like build a navy or build an army, blah blah blah.
Yeah, it was like a treasury that they had on this island. Yes.
It was a treasury, and then like as time starts passing,
Athens starts using the treasury for their own uses.
you're right. It starts using the treasury for their own sakes. But it's also the case that they're saying that Persia's not really invading. They're not having plans to invade. So then they're like, okay, what are we doing? Let's leave. And every time a city tries to leave the league, Athens is like, yeah, no. Like
We're gonna force you to
like
stay.
you're here, like you can come in easily. You can't leave easily, So like whenever they try to leave, they siege the city, and I think it was
the Delian League.
yeah, the Delian League. Like they every time a city tries to leave, they just no. Like Athens stops them from doing that. I don't know. I don't really like siege. I'm not sure. If
By the way, guys, it wasn't Pericles, it was Themistocles and Pausanias.
Oh, the two guys.
Yeah, Themistocles with Athens, Pausanias with the Spartans.
Okay.
Okay. And those are the two guys that like have like that weird backstory. Where like, okay, but like for the most part, back to the Delian League, like and I don't know. Every time like a city tries to leave, they like sometimes just convince them. Sometimes they use force. Sometimes they just destroy the city and colonize it. Basically.
Yeah.
Like it depends mostly on the city. That's how Athens became an empire.
And again, like as a straight contrast to Herodotus, like when you read Herodotus, there's almost like a romanticism to when he tells history, right? With Cyrus, he takes what he thinks, like we don't know if he believes it or not, but what he thinks is like the best story of like that mythical thing with like his mom and the pregnancy and the dream that his father-in-law or that his grandfather had. Whereas with Thucydides, it's almost like a big slap in the face, fuck you, like you were a kid at that time to grow the fuck up and see the way the world really works kind of vibe.
I think a decent contrast would be like watching the Avengers, like the cartoon as a kid, and then you're watching the movies as an adult. Like,
yeah,
there's like a very big contrast between the two. Like that's like a decent way to look at it.
He also describes Themistocles as a talented and intelligent general who was able to make really forward-thinking calls, especially in regards to foreign affairs. So he almost says like it was Themistocles' genius idea when he realized that like Athens wouldn't be secure and wouldn't have its influence unless it checked both Corinth and Sparta. So and also like walling their city, protecting their city from being like directly attacked, because I think Thucydides has Themistocles say that it was easily attackable, and they also complete harbors at Piraeus, which isn't too far away from Athens. And obviously Themistocles then makes that decision to have Athens solidify their navy and go through that naval path.
He also mentions that like because like he does
Which like helps Athens. Like that's not a stupid decision.
No, he also says that like because by this point like we kind of like assume it's like yeah we're probably going to war with Sparta. Let's like actually take some steps in advance in case it were to happen. And he shows his reasoning as why they should do it.
I forgot about this. This is brilliant. The Spartans see the Athenians walling their city, and they get nervous as well. Because in their eyes, right? I think Thucydides was writing that like, oh, they're walling their city. They must be preparing for an attack with us, and that like triggers the Spartans to prepare as well. I think does he talk about that, guys? Yes or no?
The Spartans?
Yes, like when the Athenians wall their city, the Thucydides write that like the Spartans saw this as like a violation of the treaty, and also like them trying to like they saw this as like, oh shit, like this is actually like if they're walling off the city, that means they're preparing for war against us.
Maybe. If it is, I don't remember, but I do remember that like there's like an agreement between all cities that you don't wall your city off.
Yes.
Like I don't know if it's that particular treaty, but like there is an agreement, and so Sparta does see it as a violation, and they're like, you don't wall off your city without like thinking there's a war gonna happen.
Exactly. Yeah. So then that's sort of, it's like a Cold War at first, right? It's like increasing the hostilities. So that's chapter 4, and then chapter 5. So again, like Thucydides is talking about the growth of Athenian power, and at this point, the Spartans finally decide they can't tolerate this anymore. A second congress is then called upon and held in Sparta, right? Corinthians, who were also anxious about how their colony Potidea would come out. They'll once again like address their allies to like unite. They also compliment the Spartans for like agreeing to do this war against the Athenians finally at last. And they also detail the reasons of why them and the Spartans will be victorious, like in that speech. They also warn that Athens is a tyrannical city and could possibly enslave all of Greece.
To be fair, I don't think he's wrong, honestly.
Which is insane to think that people, right, like, because we usually think that like, the Greek city-states, like in a really elementary way, like wouldn't do this to each other. But the reality is like, again, they always saw themselves as like different, like states, city-states, not as like all Greeks.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was one chapter where they did mention that like, oh yeah, this city sold all the inhabitants of this city into slavery.
Yeah.
Like we see how
I think the Athenians were selling a lot of the content.
like we see how like in every city-state's mind, there was always a threat that another city-state is going to sell them into slavery.
Yes.
There's always that like possible threat.
I agree.
So like yeah, in the second Congress, like you see how like the Spartans like they're like red alert right now. They're like, wait, there's like we can't ignore it anymore. So like, but like it's very interesting how like rather than like just immediately declare war, they actually like have to give some justification to it.
Yes, but I think so when they have these congresses and they give these speeches, these men who are like politicians also speak in terms of like honor, integrity, loyalty, like upholding treaties and stuff. And Thucydides is like, actually, did they do this for this honorable reason, or did they really do this for this self-serving reason? He sort of inserts that in there. I don't know if you guys agree with me or not, but I feel like there's been, when I read it, there's been times where Thucydides would like add that comment in to sort of like make the reader like self-critical as to like whether these politicians are being honorable or they're just being completely like transparent and slimy.
I think like what I would get from it is like I don't think Thucydides particularly cares on whether an individual politician or general like has like good intentions with what they're asking for. Thucydides is more interested in is this state, like how does the state view it?
Yeah.
And he sees states as
Self-serving.
and even they don't care about any like the whole point of the states is for the betterment of the state itself in Thucydides' eyes.
Yeah.
So in his point of view, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. They would just put that out there for like their own self-serving reasons.
Yeah.
And like when we see it, like once like the Spartans just agree, okay, let's start war. Like before that, they start they start like saying like, hey, if you want us not to invade you, expel all your guys who like are related to this person who did this, this, and this. So like we see like they don't they're, I kind of see them as the state as a self-serving entity in this case.
Which is also really common to how we in the modern world also see how wars come about, right? Like you said, Paul, it's not really a great man theory anymore. And also, like when you read about history, they just tell you how the events happened. They don't really tell you about morality or anything like that. And so I don't know if Thucydides like started that sort of discourse in Western thought on how history should be told, or like it grew independently of him. I think he definitely had like a huge influence. He's also been called the father of realism, which is like a theory in international relations, whereby they see states as like self-serving and it's just about ends justify the means and try to get as much power and security as possible. And people really see Thucydides as like the progenitor of that, which you see why. He really adopts this sort of mindset. Almost completely opposite from like a character like Jesus, right? Who would very much focus on the morals, and like Thucydides is almost like he's completely detached from the morals. Like
you know what? And like, if we have to have a perfect person to contrast him to Herodotus, he did talk about like a just ruler or unjust rulers, wise rulers, unwise rulers. We see like how Herodotus talks about these people, and even though he does relatively see it as he does frame it in a neutral lens, we see how the people who tell the story, and he is relating what people who tell the story are saying, do see it in a moral or virtuous or unvirtuous light.
Yeah.
And we don't see that with Herodotus, which is much more impersonal.
So he introduces Pericles, right, as like Themistocles, a leading statesman, and also a man who's great with both words and action. Mm-hmm. That's how he describes Pericles. He also explains that Pericles asserts that his current advice is consistent with what he has recommended so far, that Athens cannot yield to the Peloponnesians. He also stresses the importance of like Athens' like superior resources, especially the navy, mm-hmm. and predicts that the enemy will be hampered by disunity. Mm-hmm. He urges the Athenians to think like islanders, ready to abandon our land and our homes, but keeping close guard on the sea and our city. Pericles says he regards the war as inevitable. This inevitability keeps getting repeated.
Well, because I obviously like Thucydides is kind of saying this from like after the war already started and like probably when it finished.
What's it called, that term? Hindsight.
Yeah, he's doing it in hindsight. Where then they're like, okay, well, obviously the war was going to happen, and these are the reasons why. And Thucydides does lay out a pretty decent case of like why the war was bound to happen. Like he does lay out a decent case.
So, and through Pericles, he says that the war is inevitable. He also tells the Athenians to recall their courage and great deeds of their ancestors who confronted and defeated the Persians. And that's how the book ends.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, what do you guys think of the first book so far? Much more captivating introduction, I think, than Herodotus.
Here's the thing. Like, while in general, I prefer the first book, I still really like prefer the Cyrus section in Herodotus. Because, like, here's the thing. For the most part, like, Thucydides is much more consistent. Like, everything leads to another thing. Like, we see like there's a flow between event A and event B for reasons X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. And
Herodotus, while he doesn't do that, while he talks about an event, it's very captivating and like, it takes my attention.
Yeah.
It just so happens that when that happens, it's sandwiched between a bunch of
Yeah. But because also Herodotus is looking at like a much more macro level.
Yes, like obviously Herodotus is looking at a bigger picture, while Thucydides, he's narrowing it down.
Yeah. When I was reading through it, it felt more, it's similar to like comparing a documentary to a biographical movie, which they both have their own style. Like Herodotus, he gives like that lay of the land. He shows the environment, the cultures, and then with the story intertwined. With this one, it focuses on the story and then maybe adds like a little bit of extra within, but it's more focused on what happened, the details, rather than the...
Oh, do you know what? This is how I would describe. Thucydides is like, for so far, is a concise book, which it leads events, which with logical, like...
He's a much more material thinker,
it's a
logical thinker.
Much more logical extrapolations. Herodotus feels like there's two books meshed together, but like they're like in a scrambled order. Like
he feels like he's read the Iliad and the Odyssey, and he felt like, oh, why don't I write something like that and include real events as well?
No, imagine reading the Iliad and the Odyssey, but one chapter is the Iliad, and it's then the next chapter is the Odyssey. Then it's like that. That's how it feels with Herodotus. Well, like obviously, like there's a through line with Herodotus. It's not as clear as it is with Thucydides, which like with Thucydides, like it's much like honestly, I never had to take a break with Thucydides because everything led to another, and I'm like, okay, I don't have to be juggled with.
I don't have to like clear my head for like the next one, and like then clear my head for like the next verse. Yeah.
So like yeah, and also like if this is like just a nitpick for me, I do find it preferable that there's actually sub chapters in the books because it tells me when I should stop. Like like that's not necessary.
Herodotus was like a pain in the ass. I felt like I had to read it all like the same day.
All at once.
Yeah.
And this is like wow, you I had like a stopping point for me. I'm happy.
I'm giving you props.
I'm giving you props for that. It's nice. I appreciate it. And most importantly, I like the little blurb at this beneath each chapter heading, which talks about what the chapter is going to talk about.
Yes.
Oh, does it have that in your version?
So it has.
Does it have chapters?
It has chapter, yes.
Or is it just books?
So, for example, what was the first one here? So, first one was introduction, and then it goes on to where is it? The dispute over Epidamus, and then it would move over, and then it would go dispute over Corcyra. So it's basically the chapter name.
It's the chapters.
Okay, so you have chapters. Though like, I guess the difference is you don't have to blurb.
The little blurb, no.
The blurb helps a lot actually, because it primes the mind for like
the next book.
Yeah.
For like the chapter of what you're gonna read, so like you know what you have to keep track of.
Talking about this, Paul, and the contents.
Yeah, just like pass through like a chapter. Just look where it says chapter. You have like the little, the little blurb here.
Ooh, okay.
It just talks about what the chapter is about.
What it's about. Okay.
And there's obviously this is a translator's note, but I do think we should contrast it with Herodotus. They actually call Greek Hellas in this version rather than Greece in Herodotus version,
Which is much more authentic.
It's like obviously like I see when they did that for Herodotus, it was like a translator thing. It still bothered me.
Yeah.
And like he did it right.
The one criticism of like the great books is like they do have some like translator mistakes. It'd be nice if they got like kept it as original as possible. But if it also maybe like with Herodotus' Paul, they never really got, because there's no originals of these left, right? The earliest versions are copies, probably not even of before Christ, right? It was probably like maybe like 100 within 100 AD.
No, absolutely. But the concept, like Greece wasn't called Greece until the Romans called them Greece.
Yeah.
Like it still bothers
That's
me.
true.
It like
It's like when I showed you guys that Darwin, the ending of Darwin, and like it's actually like where he included God in it, but actually on his very first edition he didn't. It's the more authentic version.
So like obviously it's not a big thing, but it does bother me.
Yeah. All right, guys. Anything else you guys want to add in regards to Thucydides that you think should be noted?
Not now. I can't think of anything as of now.
I do think he's much more different than Herodotus.
Yes.
We'll see as we go on whether it's better or worse. It's so far looking pretty.
It's like a this is how the real world works.
Yeah.
Which maybe to our eyes, because think about it again, guys. Like in Western society, we also like adopted a lot of Aristotle and Platonic thinking, which deals with morality much strongly. This was like before Plato and Aristotle, and actually this reflected a time in Greek culture where there was no focus on morality, right? When we read the Iliad, they thought that people who like killed each other and acted sexist towards women was like heroic. So we have to consider how they viewed the world, like before, especially before Plato and Aristotle came to be.
Oh, I actually do have 2 points. Obviously, the first point a bit minor, but like from what I heard, there's not a woman in the Thucydides in his histories, probably because he didn't care about them. Okay, this is like for me a more important point. I actually feel like Thucydides is much more like historically accurate, or at least more historic and rigorous in his work.
Yes. He doesn't include supernatural stuff, first of all.
And for me, most importantly, he checks his sources. So I don't think he doesn't include them, but he checks the sources. He doesn't take something at face value. He like gets like a secondary source and like something to verify that secondary
and
source.
And for some of them, he can even extrapolate what his personal viewpoints, because he was a general, right? He didn't just live in that war. He had an authority, he had a position of authority.
So like, so I don't have to think much of like, okay, how historically accurate is this?
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're not gonna have
Definitely, if we talk about the dolphins,
Like, yeah, honestly-
we're not gonna be like,
Yeah.
did this actually happen? No, we're gonna be like, no, this didn't happen. There was no dolphins that helps people.
or like that one time, a guy maybe swam underwater for 10 miles.
Yeah.
3 million soldiers at Thermopylae.
For 5 million. What are you talking about?
Those are pretty egregious from Herodotus, but a lot of times, if there was something he didn't trust, he would usually state it, right? He would say, oh, like, one of the leading beliefs is that so-and-so did this, but I'm not 100%
Like,
convinced. Yeah.
there's one thing in this was like I see Herodotus like book 4 or something where he was talking about Egypt, and I'm like, oh wait, are there birds that actually sit in crocodiles' mouths? I actually didn't know, so I'm like, does a Trochilus exist? I'm like, oh, it does. I'm like, wow, I got fucking scammed.
Yeah.
Like you painted me this picture, and I just got scammed.
That being said, with Thucydides, did it say whether he told this to he read it to people in Greece? Because remember, Herodotus did, right? He told, he read through his stories to the people of Athens, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe that goes to show the difference between the two. Herodotus, it's more of a performance to attract the people of Athens, to show them, this is what happened. This is how, he's trying to get people to listen. While Thucydides is, this is what happened. I want people to know the truth and to understand.
I want to record this for all time. He thinks this story is going to survive for all time, not just in the his timeline, his time.
Which it did.
Yeah.